I'm Derek.
And I'm Noah, and you're listening to A Bite Of,
where we take our current favorite pop culture obsession and enjoy it one nibble at a time.
Whoop, 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 whoop. So that was a noise for a little housekeeping alert. So I don't even know if that's going to be picked up on the mic. It's fine. We have been getting quite a few great reviews.
Thank you.
On the podcast. Love it. We've got messages, all that stuff. So we wanted to set a goal, a reasonable, maybe too far out of our reach goal for iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever they're calling themselves now, and to get 100 reviews at least until the end of, by the end of 2020.
Yes.
So that'd be cool.
Yeah.
If that happens.
That would be awesome. Mm-hmm. And we're really grateful for those of you that have taken the time to give us 5 stars and to write really kind and thoughtful reviews. It means a lot to us. So, this is just a little goal for us as we continue growing, as we continue getting feedback from you guys. It's awesome. So we'd really like this sort of beautiful achievement.
There's that accent.
That we've set for ourselves. And if you want more Edwards... No, I'm just kidding.
That was the last season. How dare you?
This is closer.
Yeah, we've gotten so many great ones. So it'd be nice. I mean, if you're listening to us now on your little Apple device or wherever you're listening to us, just, hit the review button and you can just say something silly. We've gotten some silly ones. It's great. But that's it. That's enough housekeeping stuff because... We're done.
Thank you. We're sorry we've taken up your time with that. So let's get into episode 10 of season 2 of A Bite Of.
Stop confusing people.
But I explain it. You just get confused. But if you listen to the whole sentence, I say what I'm talking about, which is episode 7 of The Haunting of Bly Manor, The Two Faces, Part 2.
I know. Finally, Part 2. Part 1 was a few episodes ago. So.
Yeah, this is Bly Manor, okay? They said not only in our episodes do we jump around in time, within one episode, but we do it through the season. Mm-hmm. You wanted part 2 after part 1? Not on tonight.
It makes sense, though. I mean, when you think about it in the grander scheme of things, because, you had the Hannah Gross episode, and you had a few things, the Jamie and Dani episode. So, I mean, it made sense, but it was also usually they're together, but I guess part 2... which we'll talk about, and I'm sure you've seen, and while you're listening to it, is crazy.
Yeah. Before we get into that, let's go a little bit over episode 6, which was titled The Jolly Corner.
I hated that episode.
The Jolly Corner. So in that episode, we saw a lot of stuff with Dani and Jamie happen, like good stuff. We saw Uncle Henry's evil twin, Smiley Guy, and we saw Flora somehow really sort of being manipulated by Miss Jessel.
Yeah, we're now getting into the point where we're seeing a lot of possession happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not cool.
No, cool. I mean, that's not consent on a different level. You're not only possessing my body, but you're tucking me in, to use Flora's phrase.
Right.
You're pushing my soul away. So that's not cool.
What do they say? There's tucking you in. They call it dream hopping.
Dream hopping.
She's just dream hopping. And then they call it it's in another memory or something like that or whatever. But whatever. They have a million different things. And then the last episode ended with that very intense moment of Miles jumping from the shadows and hitting Dani in the head. And that was the end of the episode.
Right. Yeah. So before we get into it, spoiler warning, because if you're just listening to this because you don't want to watch the show and you're wanting to get the gist of it, great. If you've already seen it, ignore this. Keep listening. So
we just have to do our due diligence.
Yeah, we want to warn people. So buckle in for episode 7 because we're about to learn some Bly Manor ghost logistics.
Yeah, logistics is the right word. Who's where and what and why and how is it happening?
Well, it's how the ghost stuff works.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess I shouldn't have just said logistics. It's how the supernatural works at Bly Manor. Mm. So, I mean, I think it's interesting how the dream hopping happens, how the possession happens, and we're all seeing it from Peter Quint. I can't.
Boo.
I can't with him. He's great character, terrible person.
Right. And you know what? I've had a lot of back and forth within my own self for this episode. And I realize that as a viewer, I've reacted to it the way you're supposed to, because you're seeing the bad guy get the upper hand. And as a viewer, that's frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're really seeing that not only in life and death, that Peter Quint is just constantly manipulating, and he's a huge narcissist.
Yeah.
Through the his entire life. So
basically.
I hate it. So where this episode picks up is when Dani regains consciousness and she sees Flora Miles, but then surprise, Miss Jessel and Peter Quint are there. Ooh. And she's gagged and obviously delirious because she got smacked in the back of the head.
Yeah.
Not cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just like, I mean, you wake up, there's dead people with you, but the kids are there. She's like, she has no idea what's going on. And so we kind of hear that there's this plan brewing, right? Like the kids are like, should we, like, why are we doing this to her? And he's like, no, we have to. And
yeah, you're getting bits and pieces of the end of the episode at the beginning of the episode, essentially. They're sprinkling the seeds of mystery of what's really happening. So we're getting to see that, the kids are in cahoots with the two ghosties.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So that's crazy.
Yeah, really crazy. Really annoyed at them.
And it plays into one of the theories we had in Turn of the Screw. That we were talking about how, were they making the kids do these things?
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's interesting that I feel like they read up on what everybody thinks happened in Turn of the Screw and is literally doing every possible situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
In Bly Manor.
Totally. Totally. Because I was thinking about it watching this episode where it really in the novella, we really just see him as a figure who's behind glass a lot. He's behind the windows, always looking in, always sort of existing there. So they did that, and that only happened like twice. And after that, it's like, well, now he's just everything possible.
Right, right.
And what ends up happening with this is that Miss Jessel she goes off into a memory.
Yeah, she disappears. So we're seeing that they don't really have... This bug almost flew in my mouth. Why is there a bug here and almost flew in my mouth? So, yeah, we're seeing that these ghosts... how do I explain this? So, the memories we've seen so far, it seems like there's always an anchor memory for the ghosts, or at least the newly birthed ghosts. Mm-hmm. So, like, for Hannah, it's Owen, the interview with Owen. PQ is this conversation with his mother. So it's interesting that we keep seeing it. And then Miss Jessel, it's the scene where she's in the Wingrave's bedroom trying on the fur coat. Mm. She keeps going that over and over. And it's interesting that they keep getting pulled back to that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. And I think this is when the knocking happens.
Yeah. So Miss Jessel disappears and he's like, oh, she's just dream hopping. And then he's like, they hear there's a knock. And he's like, oh, it's Hannah. You have to go to the door, Miles, and tell her exactly what I'm telling you to say. And they're like, there's no knock, PQ. Like, for a ghost, you're hearing your own ghosts. Mm-hmm. And then we see that he goes dream hopping himself. And he's standing in an apartment. And he opens the door. And it's a woman who we learn is his mother.
Yeah, and this happens a few times in the episode. We're not going to go over every single time because I feel like it's almost pointless. Yeah. Because it's the same scene over and over with different little things. Pretty much, this is... I don't like this because they tried so hard in this episode to sympathize and humanize Peter Quint. Yeah. And I get it. Like, you had a terrible upbringing, but you made the choice to be an asshole. Yeah. Like, you're not born that way. Nobody's born that way. And yes, you went through terrible things, but there's resources and things you can do to help yourself.
Yeah, it's called rising above it. Right. Peter Quint.
And this is where we learn that his mother essentially is blackmailing him and sent by his father. And this is where him stealing the money comes in. Right. And that's why he keeps replaying this. So if you know this, he stole money from Uncle Wingrave. And then he was supposed to take Miss Jessel, but sadly he got like neck grabbed and he's dead.
Dunzo. Laked.
Right.
So then we join Miss Jessel in her hopped dream. And it's when she's being interrogated by the police with Mrs. Gross. And they're like, where did he go? Were you in cahoots with him? What happened? She's like, we were like supposed to go together. He literally just left. I have no idea where he is.
Yeah, this is like the last days of Miss Jessel. That's how I saw like her memories, because some of it was like memory and some of it was firsthand. And I think that was another confusing thing about how they do this dream hopping thing, because there are moments when it's, no, we're telling you what happened. But then there's moments when like they break character or break whatever like dream sequence they're in.
Right.
And they're like, of course you have to do this scene over again. It's like, God damn it.
Yeah. They're like they're fully aware that they're in a dream hop or whatever. So then we have this moment where the police guy leaves. She's apparently been sitting at the table for hours and Miles walks in. He's like, Peter said to tell you that he's not actually gone. So
yeah, he never left.
Don't worry about it. And she goes back to her room. And then Peter is standing in the shadows. And she's like, WTF, PQ, where have you been, crap face? And he's like, I can explain. And she's like, no, you can't. And he's like, put out your hand.
Yeah, this is where he comes out as a ghost, essentially. And she is upset because he just disappeared. He's like, pack your bags, and then he's gone.
She's like waiting by the curb with her bag. So awkward.
Right, probably looking fashionable as heck.
Yeah, she always looks so good, doesn't she?
They all do. Everybody in this show, especially Hannah Gross. I'm like, why? How?
Yes.
Where did you get those earrings?
Yes. So good.
But yeah, so she's upset by it. And when she sees him, she takes that frustration out on him. And he's trying to tell her, he's like, shut up for 2 seconds. I'm dead. I'm about to show you some ghost tricks. So, and that's where we get the interesting thing of seeing how a ghost, I guess, develops or increases their skill level firsthand from Peter Quint, because he's not able to touch her. And at this point, that's interesting because we saw him touch the doll, he pick it up. So during these like weeks that he was grieving, I guess, he was...
I mean, and you said something in the last episode that was funny. It's like sort of the trope of being a ghost. It's like you come back, you don't know how to do things, but over time I could touch things. I could possess people.
I can flicker the lights.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So they meet a few times. She goes up into the Wingrave's bedroom to meet him. And this is when you're starting to see that he's devising some type of plan. That he's like, I know a way that I can, get out of this damnation. And he's willing to go to extreme lengths for this. Yeah. And this is also when we find out that he can possess people because he accidentally like touches her and it goes inside of her. So it's interesting. She does mention, this was something that was in my head because I was like, can they go off the property? Like, where do they go? But I mean, obviously they're dream hopping and he can't get past the gates.
Right. And so when he figures out that he can go into her, he's like, okay, well, maybe this can get me off of here.
Right.
In the next scene, we see her coming down the stairs. Jamie's fixing some beautiful flowers in a vase in the front room. And Jamie has sort of checked in with her earlier in the episode. And she's like, look, he's gone now. You can kind of continue with your career. You can become a barrister. Why don't you call Wingrave? So Jamie's checking in on her again. It's like, did you call him? And you can tell that she's lying. She's making up an excuse that she called him. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, she's not going to do it. She's still all wrapped up in PQ. And Jamie's kind of just like, oh, well, screw Wingrave if he's not going to give you a job.
She notices something weird about her. Too.
Yeah.
She's like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah,
fine. So she walks out the door. She starts bucking it to like the entrance to the grounds of Bly Manor. Once she gets there, her body keeps going. And we see that PQ is actually in her when talking to Jamie. And he falls on the other side. So not even inhabiting a human physical form can get you off the grounds of the manor. Right.
Yeah. And this is when he disappears for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a little bit since she saw him as a ghost and also when he was alive last. And he sees her again and he's like, I have a plan. There's something that I know we can do that should fix this. He's like, if it works, it should fix it. And the whole time I'm like, why would I... Like, did you not hear what the cop said? Do you not know what he did? Like, yes, he died. Oh, well. But he also did all of that
He's
stuff.
still a bad person.
Right, without telling you.
Yeah.
And you're willing to just believe him. Also, he's a ghost now.
Yeah, and she was, when he first comes out of the shadows in her bedroom, she was really mad at him. She was like, you did some illegal stuff. You were going to make me an accomplice. Like, how dare you? And then, because he's a ghost, she's like, oh, I guess all is forgiven in some sense. Like, it's so dumb.
I mean, I guess, like, part of it is like, why? I mean, why else be upset at him? Like, he's dead. But yeah, it's like, why are you listening to him? Why are you... And there's a moment, so he's talking to her and he's like, the reason why, like, maybe that other thing with me possessing you and you trying to run out and all of this other stuff didn't work is because you didn't invite me in. Like, you're still there and you're your soul or you push him out after a time because it's temporary.
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen with Flora, with Miles, where they kind of like get out of it a little bit. So there's an interesting thing that, and it's a running line in the rest of the episode. He's like, it's you, it's me, it's us. And it's almost like a incantation. And when that happens, then it's like you're giving yourself over for the spirit to possess. And then, they have control over your body.
Yeah.
And you're put, and we see inside that anchor memory.
Right.
The one that you always go back to or you're always drawn back to. She gets put back into the memory with her and Peter Quint trying on that coat.
Yeah.
And you can tell something's up.
Right.
Because she's like, did it work? Like, are we together now? And you can see him getting a little upset. He takes her fucking body.
Yeah.
And drowns her.
Yeah. I knew it wasn't going to be good because she was wearing the black dress that we have seen her as a ghost in. I'm like, oh, this is the night. This is the night. And this is like some freaking Chris Pratt, Jennifer Lawrence, Passengers bullshit.
Yeah.
Where just because you're in a shitty situation, you have to fuck it up for someone else. It's disgusting.
Right. And I just don't, there might be some like genuine, sadness motivations there. Maybe he does love her. Cool. Treats her awfully. But it's like the decision. It's that exact thing.
Well, if you love someone, you want them to prosper, not be stuck in eternal hell with you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he manipulated her to the end, literal end. And she sees this. There's a really cool scene visually that they do when she starts noticing something's wrong.
Yeah.
And she's in bed and then there's water above her in that dream. And the most fucked up thing about this, and I don't like, aside from him controlling her body and like, robot controlling it into the water and dying, is that she's the one that dies. She experiences it because he gets pushed out and she goes back into her body and she's the one that drowns. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
And she sees PQ at the bottom of the lake.
Yeah. I would have almost rathered him trick her into going to the hallway when the no-face lady came and her got choked out.
Yeah.
Rather than him deliberately walking her into the lake and drowning her.
Yeah, and then her experiencing the actual pain of death.
Yeah.
Because there's a moment when she goes back to that anchor memory, and this is after she's died, and she gets pissed at him. She's like, why? You promised. Why did you do that? Like, you didn't tell me you were going to drown me.
Right.
And she says, she was like, I was the one that, as soon as I felt that water come into my lungs, it's like,
yeah,
you dick.
I mean, at least for her character, we've been so upset with her throughout this whole process by how easily she's been taken over by him. She wasn't the one that was like, okay, I'll die.
Right. It's hard. There's a very thin line. It's like, we don't want to blame the victim here.
Yeah.
Right. And it's more of just like us as viewers being like, why? Like, no, we know it ends bad. Like, just stop being stupid.
Yeah. Especially, it's just frustrating. This whole episode just had me incredibly frustrated. It just did everything I hate. Like, even when we first see Dani, like I've said this before, I don't like murdery, tortury horror. And the first thing we're met with is Dani screaming for help, being, tied up.
Like
crying.
2 children and 2 ghosts.
I hate that. There's something about that just in my soul I cannot stand. That's why I don't do like Saw and Hostel and all that crap. It's not for me.
After Saw 2, they all get really corny. So
it just becomes like how to cleverly kill people with Saw.
Right.
Yeah. So it just like this. I think this episode just like hit kind of things that I hate: people being taken advantage of, people being tortured, and it just.
You've gotten a good run though so far. I mean, this is episode 7, and that really hasn't happened so far. So it's like I feel like Hill House had much more of the scenes throughout the entire series, and this one we're finally like getting into the quote unquote horror stuff, you know? Yeah, but I mean it's been nice so far. I mean, sad, but
so there's the scene that Noah is kind of quoting as the anchor scene, which I like, of the anchor memory. And he just keeps saying, like, let me show you how beautiful you are. Let me show you how beautiful you are. And every time a Polaroid falls out, And then we as the viewers see that in the Polaroid, it's their decaying lake bodies.
Yeah, because they're dead and he's a dick.
Yeah.
He's a dead dick.
dead dick.
Ugh.
Dick dung, dig dung, ditch dung. Dick.
Yeah, and so that was his plan, initial plan, and didn't work because that's not where the plan ends.
Yeah. You also see when Flora finds her. So she gets drowned. She realizes she's dead. Her body is actually what you first see is her body floating in the lake and her spirit scream crying.
I couldn't. That was so upsetting.
Yeah. And then Flora's just standing there.
Yeah, in shock.
Yeah. I also have a question about rain in this show. In the last episode, Jamie and Dani were walking in the forest and it was clearly raining, like the sound of rain. No one was getting wet. It's raining while her body is floating in the lake. Flora is not wet. It's only raining over the lake.
I think it's just like that misty rain, and like the rain sound you're hearing just might it be like falling off of things. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Because it doesn't sound like a downpour.
It's rain. It's definitely more than a drizzle, and it's making little rain marks on the lake. I don't understand. They have very secluded storms in England, apparently.
It's ghost rain. Okay, that's why Flora can see it and nobody else can see it.
I guess so.
So this is when we go back to the present, essentially. And we're seeing now that Miles and Flora and Peter Quint and Jessel are talking about this game. And there's a game that they've been grooming these two to do. Like, we keep getting hints like she knows too much, talking about Dani. Like, we need to make sure she doesn't ruin this for anybody else, i.e. kill her.
Eliminate her.
Right, yeah. And so it's really interesting. So now you're seeing the kids being involved in this and also the hesitation now.
Yeah.
And you're seeing in Miss Jessel, and I think I've always loved it, how they do this in movies and TV shows where it's like that person has been along with the plan the whole time. But as a viewer, you're seeing what forced them into doing that.
Yeah.
And by the time we get back to them, now you're like, oh, I have the full story. And you can see her starting to be like, I don't know about all this.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
Yeah, she's kind of just watching it all happen. She's watching this man manipulate these children as she was manipulated. And she's always just sort of in the background watching it happen. And knowing that I loved these kids and he's putting them through this, what's happening. And it almost seems like she was blocked off from these memories. For a while.
Right.
And now she's kind of been able to put it all together again because he's let her float off or dream hop and she's been able to see everything and put those puzzle pieces together.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. There's a moment when, so they're talking to Miles and Flora and they're trying to get them to agree because they're the living ones. The Jessel and Peter Quint are ghosts. So they need them to go along with all of their plans and they're not agreeing, at least yet, to go along with it to get rid of Dani. And then there's a moment where PQ like rips that humming ghost from nowhere. The one that was behind the one that was behind Flora when she told it to shush.
Yeah.
Like rips it out of thin air. I was like, do you want me to turn into this? And I'm like, whoa, one, leave that innocent, faceless ghost alone. Yeah. And two, where'd she come from? She's there the whole time.
She's just hanging out. She's like, what's going on? Popcorning. She's like, what are these people doing? And he's like shaking her. She's like, what the fuck? And then he just throws her again.
Yeah, and she disappears.
Yeah.
So now we found out that I guess the older you're there, the more you start fading.
Right. He's like, this is what happens to you when you die at Bly Manor or whatever.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So he's saying he's trying to get them. He's, harping on their emotions.
Yeah.
He's like, do you want us to turn faceless and disgusting and humming in an attic for the rest of our lives? So that's what pushes them to agree. Really.
And he also manipulates them with the thoughts of their parents.
Yeah.
So he's like, if you play this game with us, you're going to go to, is it jail? I don't know what it is.
No, Forever Home.
Home. That's what it is, like jail home.
That's a callback to Hill House.
Oh.
Remember the one the Olivia, there was that house that she was always building, that sketching? She called it their Forever Home.
Oh, gosh.
I know. I was like,
yikes. Yeah. So he wants to put them in Hill House, and he's like, your parents will be there. And they even say, they're like, even though they didn't die here, we're still going to be in the same house as them. And he's like, yeah, no, you will be. And they're like, okay. But he's like, but you have to believe that it's me and you and us.
Yeah, that's what pretty much makes them agree.
Yeah.
And so we see them, he gets to Miles first. He gets into Miles. And then we see the different color eyes more clearly now. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's it. and then Flora and Jessel.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where he's like, did it work? Are you Jessel? And she's like, yeah, I don't really feel her anymore. It's just like a tickle in the back of the head. And then we hear Hannah Gross.
Yeah.
She's calling for the kids. And she, I guess, Miles Peter, that's what I'm going to call him now, Miles Peter, because he's Peter Quint in Miles' body. He's like, you stay here, Flora Jessel, and watch over Dani, because we got to, like, kill her. Mm-hmm. She knows too much. And he goes to Hannah, and he was like, I have something to show you. Come with me.
He's just like, hey, beautiful. And she's like, Miles.
Yeah.
You. What a scoundrel. 10? Oh, my.
She follows him out there, and there's this interesting thing, this thing he keeps bringing up, talking about Wile E. Coyote.
Mm.
And he's saying, you know, I think it's, you know, I watch you every day. You wait, you dream up all these new clothes, and you're still here acting like nothing happened. He's like, you're like Wile E. Coyote. He's like, when Wile E. Coyote runs off a cliff, he's still running. And then once he looks down, he falls.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you're Wile E. Coyote. And he's like, it's time for you to look down. Takes her to her dead body.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I thought we were done with this.
So many decaying bodies in this episode.
What is Jamie doing if she's not taking care of the ground?
This is what I'm saying. How is there not just the, like, does Bly Manor not reek? There are just dead bodies everywhere. Everywhere there's people dying. I guess she's just like, I just do the flowers. I don't do the lawn. We've never seen a riding mower.
I guess that well isn't working. And
right.
It looks like it's in the forest.
But it's not that far from the lake, right?
That is also, well, I don't know. That is where Dani first met them. So
right.
I don't know how big Bly Manor is.
Give me a map. I want a topographical map with water features and mountaintops.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that was really upsetting. And that he's jealous of her.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. Because he knows that he's on his way to turning into a faceless monster.
Right.
But Mrs. Gross has been able to physically change her clothes. Every time we've seen PQ, he's been in the same exact clothes when he died.
Turtleneck,
same thing with,
trench coat, slacks.
Right. Same thing with Miss Jessel. So she's in a way more of a grandmaster ghost than he is. And she's been able to do that because she's like, I'm alive. I'm here. I need to do this.
Right.
I wake up, change my clothes. Like, everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that he, again, I don't know why she looked. Like, why did she look? I don't know if it's because she's in so much denial that she felt like she needed to at some point. But when she looked, I was like, why? Why?
Yeah.
If she disappears, I swear to God, I don't.
I feel like the difference between the two of them is that what kept her going is that she had a grander purpose to take care of these children, take care of this house. Whereas Peter Quint, all he cares about is him. So he's trapped in his own hell of trying to get out of here.
Yeah, and I think what goes to it is that she finds that place her home. Mm-hmm. So she's there and she's happy to be there.
Right.
PQ is not.
No.
And I think most of the dead people there probably aren't either. Or maybe they are, because they talk about the other ghosts that are like, why do they get to go to happy memories?
Right.
And he always has to go back to the hell of his mother. I did want to bring up this one line. His mother was like, well, where else would you go?
Yeah.
I'm like, dang,
you in hell, boy.
Mama Quint.
Yeah. Not playing with you piece of crap.
So it might have to go back to if they want to be there or not.
Well, and I also think you bring up a good point about home. The other ghosts that we've seen, the humming ghost and the little boy ghost, they're in their pajamas. So they lived there. That is their home, like Mrs. Gross. So where else would they go?
Right.
So it just is like, they're like, I may not have a face, but I'm chill. And that little boy's like, I got a dollhouse to play with. I'm cool. I got Flora, my BFF.
Yeah. I felt like this whole Mrs. Gross thing was like, I mean, so far in the series, I feel like it's akin to the Nell stuff. Because it's like that 1-2 punch. It's like we got punched in the gut with finding out that she's been dead this whole time and how she died. And then it's like another punch in the gut with like Miles being possessed by, PQ. And then pretty much making Hannah pass over, her reliving that moment and seeing that she's died. I'm like, why? You're great at writing these stories, but it's making me so sad.
So sad. So angry.
And then we go back to the attic.
Yes.
And we find out that Miss Jessel was like, told Flora, pretend that you're me. and she didn't really possess her. So that's really cool.
Double cross.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, cool. Miss Jessel's like, waking up. She's snapping out of it a little bit. And I think it all goes back to Flora. Flora is like the one that everybody's trying to protect. Miles is kind of, everybody's like, he's a little shit.
He's gross.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And they free Dani and they're running out of there.
Yeah.
She's like, you need to get Flora out of here and just go. And she's like, what about Miles? And she's like, nah, he's gone. Yeah. I'm like, oh no.
Because even we get that hint. So once Mrs. Gross realizes that she's dead, she's back in the interview with Owen.
Right.
And she's like, I'm dead. And then she's like, and the kids, and they're like, it's too late for Miles.
Yeah. And that's another really sad part of this episode.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're going to be able to save him.
Yeah.
I hope, because it's terrible. That's sad, because then it's just Flora.
Yeah.
It
felt very much like the novella, though, right? Where Flora gets whisked off the manor, and then Miles is the only one that's left, kind of trapped there. And I don't know if that's going to happen again, because when they're running outside, Flora decides, I can't leave Miles, and starts screaming.
Yeah, I don't know if
she was so in the plan, and then she backed on the plan.
I think she started realizing that she wasn't going to be able to leave without her brother. And she's so young that I think, somebody that young can only think like with a one-track mind. And she's like, yes, we got to get out of here. We got to save Dani. It's like, oh, well, I freed Dani. But what about my brother? I can't leave my brother. And then she was like, well, no. And so it's like, I get it, but it's also like, little kid, shut up. There's like thousands of ghosts out here, and you're evil Peter Quint Miles' brother. And then freaking Dani turns around and then faces lake neck lady. Lake. Oh my God.
Lady of the lake, neck grabbing lady.
The lady of the lake grabs Dani's neck.
Yep.
And that's how it ends. So she PQ'd him.
Yep. I think that's her go-to move.
It didn't
the neck
look like,
grab.
Yeah, it looked like Dani was like in pain.
Yeah. And it was weird because when it happened to PQ, we didn't really see his face, but we get a clear shot of Dani being choked to death as she's being dragged wherever.
When we saw his body at the bottom of the lake, it looked like his neck was like snapped.
She's got a good grip.
So this is like the fourth bent neck lady.
Oh my God.
No.
Tally him up.
I guess fifth, because I'm counting PQ as a bent neck lady.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
5. Yeah, what's the deal with the necks? Everybody's getting grabbed by the neck. The necks are being broken.
I think it's like maybe Mike Flanagan, since he's doing this like anthology series, it's always fun to connect, since the bent neck was such a big part in the other one. It's like, let's kill some people with the necks. Let's, hide ghosts everywhere. Let's do the come home thing. Let's say forever home and make people cry every time they think about the Crane family.
The Cranes.
It was this episode seemed like it was a very long scene.
Yeah.
But it was great. I felt like it was great because we got a lot of stuff answered, and now it's setting up for the big like climax or the point of this story, if you will. But I feel like in typical how the season's going, I feel like the next episode is going to go away from all this and maybe go into the past again.
It's Owen's story now or whatever. Yeah, I kind of had trouble with the pacing of this episode. I felt like it was a very long scene. And it might have to do with that I hate PQ and it was mostly him manipulating people, but I felt like the pace could have been picked up a little bit personally. But I'm also questioning, so what is his ultimate plan? To just live as Miles forever? Because they can't leave the grounds.
No, but they got a second life.
Right, so he's just going to live as Miles forever.
But I also have a question. I mean, maybe all of this will get answered. Maybe that isn't their plan, but if their plan is to possess brother and sister as lovers...
Yucko.
Yeah. I don't like it.
Not cool.
And can they like repossess people after they've like completely taken them over? I guess
know.
so.
And do they continue growing or are they stuck as children?
Yeah. Creepy. TV.
I need all these answers.
Yeah, I have. So there's a few, like that's one of the questions I have. And it's like, would Miles and Flora's bodies continue to grow? That was one of the questions I wrote down after seeing this. And it's like, did he fully come up with his plan? Because they're siblings. I don't get it.
Like, and if anything, go into Dani's body.
But can he leave Bly Manor now since he's fully possessed him? Because before he didn't fully possess Miss Jessel.
Oh. Yeah, maybe that's the caveat. They have to completely take over their bodies and not let them exist.
Maybe.
I mean, either way, it's not great for the kids.
Correct.
Yeah, not good.
I'm really starting to feel for these kids, and I don't like where this story's going. I mean, I do, but I don't for them.
Yeah, I just don't understand how, as the kids, like, whether or not they're being manipulated, how they ever thought it was a good idea to tie Dani up and let them do something to her.
I mean, it seems like they've been manipulating them for a good while now. And, I mean, as grieving kids, with also losing the governess or the nanny that they love, the chance to possibly be with their parents again, I guess might just be too much of a draw for them, you know?
Yeah. I mean, but here's the story I want to know, which we should get. Who the heck is the Lady of the Lake? What happened to her?
We're definitely going to get it. I guarantee you, and the reason why they showed that Viola Lloyd person, it's probably her.
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if it's not her. Either that's her or the Faceless Humming Lady.
Yeah, like, I don't know, is it going to be another scorned lovers story, a suicide thing?
I really feel like the whole theme of this is lovers. Like, it all centers around a lot of couples.
Yeah.
And what happens with that. So, I don't know.
Lovers,
be damned.
Bad news. It's not going to be good, guys. Don't go to Bly. It is not a cool spot.
So we have a few episodes left, and season 2's over. Yeah, getting there.
We're gonna get all them answers, and I want to see if I'm gonna be happy with them.
Yep. But now, it's time for
Creepy Kids.
So, do you know who David Zellaby is?
My next door neighbor?
I hope not.
No, I don't know who that is.
So, from Village of the Damned.
Oh, the kids with the hair.
Yeah, it's very similar to Children of the Corn. So
also kids with hair.
Yeah,
but that are in corn instead of in a village.
Yeah. So this story always freaked me out, not only because a village and all their women just get suddenly pregnant out of nowhere.
Umbrella Academy. No, I'm kidding.
But they all give birth to platinum blonde children with superpowers.
Yes, that are evil as well. It's not even just superpowers for good. They're bad news bears.
Yeah, and they're all led by their de facto leader, David Zellaby.
Oh,
right. It's terrifying, and I've always loved how they're the white-haired murderous children and go on this killing spree or whatever. But their only weakness, do you remember this?
No, I've only seen the new one from the 90s, the newer one. I haven't seen the original one.
Their weaknesses are bombs.
Well, that's a lot of people's weaknesses. So that makes sense, right?
Yeah, I just they're always terrifying. There's something about children in a hive mind situation, and they all have terrible haircuts.
That's also part of it too. Not only the color, but the hair cuts are bad.
Yeah, lots of bowl cuts.
Lots of bowl cuts.
Coming from a bowl cut kid, and you did too.
Yeah.
And pretty much looking like them because I had very light blonde hair and blue eyes. It wasn't okay with me.
No!
Yeah, I watched that movie and I was like, this is where I came from.
Yes. I knew I was different than everyone else.
Where are my powers?
I'm Daisy. David, what's going on?
Yeah, so that's Creepy Kids.
Creepy Kids.
That was I had to. You had to.
Of course. I remember in that movie they made one of the moms boil her hands or something like that.
Yeah. Lots of people die in lots of different ways in this one.
Oof.
It's fantastic. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
They did it.
So next time we're talking about episode 8.
Oof.
I don't know.
God.
This is the one that
penultimate.
Is it? Is there only 9?
I think there's only 9. It's the penultimate episode.
Oh, so it's probably the big one. Yeah, I guess shows nowadays like to do the whole big climactic thing, which I kind of like. They do the climactic end of the season, the episode before, and then we get all the aftermath after.
Yeah, we get to breathe in the last episode with everybody.
Of waiting until there's a bug attack.
It's another bug. It's the same one.
It's not even summer anymore. Where are all these bugs coming from?
Oh my god, hell.
All right, so next episode coming out soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to A Bite Of. Artwork and editing by our own Noah. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at A Bite Of Pod and on Facebook at A Bite Of. If you have questions, recommendations, or just want to say hi, you can email us at abiteofpod@gmail.com. You can find us on all podcast platforms. Please be sure to rate and review to spread the word. Hope you join us next time on A Bite Of. Bye!